The events in this program are inspired by a true story. Names, dates, and details have been changed. Viewer discretion is advised. On this episode of Bizarre Murders, when a young woman is murdered, detectives follow the bizarre trail from takeout tacos to a bachelor party. And just when they start to think the killer might get away with murder, they uncover the truth behind the vicious attack and find themselves smack dab in the middle of a Shakespearean tragedy.
My love, and I am no longer a Capulet.
Rob, a 29-year-old former first responder, has failed to show up to his uncle's house for dinner. When he calls his cell, it goes straight to voicemail. Worried about his nephew, Mr. Simons drives over to the apartment and lets himself in with the spare key.
Robbie! Robbie, you okay?
Rob's apartment looks tidy, but his nephew is nowhere to be seen. When he looks in Rob's bedroom, he's horrified. He sees the body of a young woman prostrate on the bed, and on the front of her t-shirt, the words, "She's all yours," are scrawled in black marker.
Can you send someone?
When you've worked as many crime scenes as I have, you often see the killer leaving some kind of message. This one seems to suggest the suspect was leaving a note for another lover. Love triangles are one of the most common motives for murder. So the killer is essentially saying, I don't want her anymore, you can have her. But of course, they can't, for obvious reasons.
When police arrive, they survey the scene. The young woman has been stabbed, her pants cut off, suggesting a sexual assault. A knife is on the bed, likely the murder weapon. At first glance, she's been stabbed several times in the back. Under the body, a cell phone, presumably the victim's.
Detectives are looking for the murder weapon or weapons. These are the most obvious clues found at a crime scene that can lead to the killer. But just because there's weapons found near the body, it doesn't necessarily mean they were used in the crime.
The victim is 21-year-old Lisa. Born to Italian immigrants, she's a kind and caring young woman who always looks out for her friends. And one of those friends is Rob. Lisa and Rob met at college. They became close when she offered to tutor him.
So right now, this isn't looking so good for Rob. His close friend is found dead in his bed, and he is nowhere to be seen. Detectives are putting together the pieces of this puzzle, and it looks like Rob may have had some romantic feelings towards his friend. If those feelings were unrequited, bam, there's your motive.
Mr. Simons tells detectives that Rob couldn't have committed this crime. He's been taking a break from his work as a first responder due to a work-related injury. According to Simons, he's been suffering with PTSD and was having nightmares. But the meds seem to be helping. He insists that Lisa and Rob were extremely close friends, more like brother and sister, and they had no romantic inclinations toward each other. In fact, Mr. Simons is concerned that Lisa's killer has kidnapped his nephew and that he is in imminent danger.
In my experience, it's very common for relatives of criminals to deny their loved one did anything wrong. You'll often see daddy or auntie come swooping into their kid's defense when all the evidence points directly to their precious little Johnny.
As detectives search the crime scene, they develop a different theory. They find no signs of a struggle in the apartment. If someone subdued Rob, they believed the young, strong first responder would have put up a fight. They also find his car and his passport missing. But what really seals Rob's fate are the text messages on Lisa's phone. They reveal a distressed Rob reaching out to Lisa in the early morning hours.
More and more signs are pointing to Rob. He has a dead girl in his apartment, his passport and car are missing, and now messages on Lisa's phone show him inviting her over. It doesn't take a brain surgeon to figure out he's your prime suspect. You know how the saying goes, if it looks like a duck and it walks like a duck, it's a duck.
Detectives dig deeper into Rob's life and learn some alarming details. Right before becoming a first responder, Rob was involved with a bad crowd. He was arrested along with his friends and charged with assault. He was eventually acquitted and exonerated of the crime, but detectives are still alarmed.
Yeah. Just because you've been acquitted of a crime doesn't mean you didn't do it, and the cops know that. It just means the DA didn't have enough evidence to pin it on you. So this guy's suffering from PTSD, and he's previously been arrested for assault. And that is a dangerous cocktail. They need to find this ticking time bomb fast.
They track Rob's movement through his finances and discover his bank card has been used 4 times at different ATMs across the city. The last withdrawal was an hour ago. That means Rob could still be in the city.
Cash withdrawals and debit purchases leave a money trail that's easy for police to track. Criminals should know better, but hey, we're not talking about the top 1% of Harvard graduates, are we? It looks like Rob is feeling the pressure, and it's causing him to get a little sloppy.
But when police obtain surveillance footage from the ATM, they get a shock. It's not Rob withdrawing money, but an unidentified white male wearing a baseball cap.
This is a curveball the detective didn't see coming. They were expecting to see Rob, not some pimply teenager. So now they have to figure out who this kid is, how he fits in the picture, and most importantly, how they can track him down.
As they search for their new suspect, the cops get a lucky break. Someone uses Rob's bank card to order Mexican food for delivery to their house.
Of all the ways to get caught, ordering a few tacos is really a new one. I'll give him points for originality, I mean, at the very least.
Investigators follow the tacos to a home in a quiet suburban neighborhood. The police gather outside the house.
Police, open up!
But when nobody answers, they break down the door.
Freeze, clear!
Police get a big surprise.
Show me your hand!
It's not Rob. It's the young man from the ATM machine.
After all these years as an investigator, nothing surprises me. But this is a twist even I wasn't expecting. The challenge with this type of case is that you have to remain kind of nimble. You have to be able to refocus and figure out your next steps. And you got to do that fast because you've got a killer on the loose.
The young man is 20-year-old Kevin, a freshman at the local community college. As the police search his house, the detective finds an important piece of evidence: Rob's bank card.
How'd you get Rob's bank card?
Listen, I don't know who Rob is, okay? I don't know anything about any of this. I have this family friend, right? And he told me, he showed me these documents and said, you just gotta go around to all these ATMs and take some cash out.
Which friend?
His name is Jack. Let me just grab one second.
Jack told him he works for a bail bond agency. He's collecting some outstanding debt.
Right there. That's him. That's Jack.
He swears on his mother's life that he has no idea who Rob is.
Jack, where can I find Jack?
Beats me, man. I mean, you know.
Instinct always plays a part in any investigation, and whenever you're interrogating a suspect, you use it to determine whether or not they are lying. So if this young kid is to be believed, and it looks like he is, it seems we've got some kind of trickster manipulating a naive teenager for financial gain. The question is, to what end?
Detectives learn that 28-year-old Jack is a fun, outgoing amateur actor with a magnetic personality. He grew up with loving parents who gave him every opportunity in life. And he has no history of violence or psychological problems. He's a big player in the local theater scene, often playing the leading man in their productions.
Oh, speak again, bright angel. For thou art as glorious to this night being o'er my head as is a winged messenger of heaven unto the white...
Jack is good at what he does, and he loves the limelight. But he's happy to be king of the community theater world rather than seeking fame and fortune in Hollywood.
Be but sworn by love, and I will no longer be a Capulet. I felt really good about that.
Yeah.
I felt really in it. Shall we do it again?
How about bigger? How about even bigger? Just to...
Yes.
All the way up, and then
I
we
want
push it
to.
down.
I want to feel it from my soul.
Yeah. And then we'll push it down into our toes.
Yes.
Okay.
I like it.
Okay.
Okay.
He's engaged to fellow actress Nicole, who often plays the female lead opposite him. They've been living together for a year and are eagerly anticipating their elaborate wedding, followed by a tropical beach honeymoon. They're currently starring in a Shakespearean tragedy produced by the local theater company, My Way or Broadway. The wedding is scheduled 5 days after the close of the show.
And I will no longer be a Capulet. Whose phone went off? Seriously, we're in rehearsal. Really?
Larry!
But what police find most interesting about the thespian is not his range as an actor, but his home address. He lives 1 floor above Rob in the same apartment complex.
Proximity. It's a key factor when you're trying to make a link between suspects. So you got Rob, who's our murder suspect, and Jack, who is taking money out of his account. And they live next door to each other. Highly unlikely this is coincidence. I'm betting they're in cahoots. The question that needs to be answered is how and why.
Detective Young contacts Jack and asks him to come down to the police station for a chat. He refuses, telling them he's attending his bachelor party. But the police wait for no man, especially when attending his own bachelor party.
Have a seat, Jack.
Jack is accused of helping Rob escape capture.
What's up? Can you tell me about Rob? Rob. My buddy Rob.
While Jack admits to knowing Rob, he claims he has no idea where he is. When the detectives threaten to throw him in jail, he sticks to his story.
No. Look, this is not a joke. You can miss your wedding. I'm dead serious. I will lock you up. Is that the kind of game you want to play?
Jack finally capitulates.
Okay, man. Okay, I'll tell you everything I know, okay?
Some investigators threaten suspects with a horror of jail or an arrest or something trivial like that. I used to like to threaten them with not being able to go to their kid's college graduation, their 5-year-old kid's college graduation.
I was at the theater performing in my play, Romeo and Juliet, with my fiancée. And it was a fantastic night, actually. And we went home, went to bed. I woke up the next morning to this pounding on the door, okay? I open it up, and what do I see but Rob standing in front of me, wild-eyed, like a madman. Arms flexed and veins pulsing and forehead just about to burst. He tells me, Jack, I've killed Lisa.
It's a one-man show, and Jack has the starring role. But his over-the-top performance piques Detective Young's suspicion. In other words, he doth protest too much. He paints a picture of Rob as on the run and desperate for cash.
And he asked me for money. He says, I've got to get out of here. I got to go. Got to get away. I got to go on the run. I got to...
Where's Rob now?
No, I don't know.
I always love a good performance, and nothing gives me more pleasure than to watch a stupid criminal think he's playing the detectives. I just need a bag of popcorn, and I'm set.
Detective Young tightens the screws on Jack and collects his DNA to compare to the crime scene. He also asks for a writing sample to compare the killer's note left on Lisa's t-shirt. And when he asks to see his phone, they hit pay dirt. They discover incriminating online searches made on the week before the murder.
If I wasn't in the business of catching killers, I'd open a school for dumb criminals and teach one class and one class only. B, if you're going to commit a crime, don't, I repeat, do not do an internet search on your computer or phone on how to do it.
And so you research how to get rid of a corpse.
Feeling the heat, Jack suddenly changes his story. Again.
Okay. I went down to his place with him, Detective.
He admits to being in Rob's apartment on the night of the murder, but denies being there when the murder actually occurred.
So,
Here's where you can tell the professional criminals from the amateurs. The pros stick to their story, no matter what. It doesn't matter what you throw at them. The newbies crack. They keep changing their story. They scramble to come up with something that makes sense. And this, my friends, is amateur hour.
and
Jack tells Detective Young that Rob came upstairs begging for his help that night. He claims he went down to Rob's apartment, uncertain as to what he would find. But when he stepped into Rob's bedroom, he saw a horrible sight.
What did you see?
I saw Lisa dead. If he killed her, man.
Jack has been putting on quite a performance until now, but detectives have forced him into a corner. It remains to be seen whether he can act his way out of this one or not.
Lying on the bed.
When he's pressed to describe what he saw, he makes a fateful blunder.
What exactly did you see?
I saw that she'd been stabbed in the back 3 times.
Detectives know something that Jack doesn't. That's information only the killer would know.
Here's the thing. You wouldn't be able to tell how many times Lisa was stabbed just by looking at the body. With this kind of injury, there's just too much blood. The only way you would know how many times the victim was wounded is if you were there.
Can I make a phone call?
Realizing the cops are closing in, Jack asks to speak to his fiancée, Nicole, on the phone.
Nicole. Hey, it's me.
She tells him she's found a bag with bloody clothes and Rob's passport in it. She warns Jack that she's going to tell the police about it. He begs her not to.
Nicole, don't do that, okay? I can explain everything.
Remember what I said about teaching only one class to criminals? I take it back. I'm gonna make it 2. When you make a phone call from jail or a police station, the cops can hear you. They record the calls. Any attempt to talk secretly or in code is going to get you nowhere. In fact, it'll only dig yourself deeper into a pit of self-incrimination.
Okay, so I did it. I killed them both, okay? You want to know how I did it? I got him to the theater and I let him into the back. I told him I needed his help carrying some bags to my car. Said I hurt my shoulder in a rehearsal.
I can bring him down to your car?
Please, yeah, that'd be fantastic. Thank you, Rob.
As Rob bends down to pick up the bags, Jack grabs him from behind and slits his throat.
I just slit his throat. And flights of angels sing thee to thy rest.
Then he waits for Rob to bleed out. He steals Rob's wallet, cell phone, and apartment keys. That night, Jack goes on with the show, putting on an incredible performance. After the show is over, he and Nicole go back to their apartment. Posing as Rob, he sends a text message to Rob's college friend, Lisa, who Jack had previously met. Just after 11, Lisa arrives at Rob's apartment building.
Hi, Lisa, come in, please.
He tells her Rob texted him too, asking for help. He says Rob is in the bedroom.
Oh, well, you know how he is. He won't get out of bed. Let me take your coat.
He's careful to wipe his prints from the knife. Proceeds to cut off Lisa's pants with one of Rob's scissors from his first responder kit. and writes, "She's all yours," on her t-shirt. Jack then steals Rob's car keys and passport.
Despite the guy's penchant for overacting, he obviously did a good enough job to convince Lisa, who he'd only met a couple of times before, to walk into his trap. And then, in some twisted drama of his own making, he tries to destroy Rob's reputation by making him look like a rapist and a murderer.
The next day, Jack returns to the theater and dismembers Rob's body. He takes his body parts to an abandoned industrial site, where he disposes of them in several steel drums. What he tells the police next is probably the most disturbing part of the story.
It was seriously, dude. I was kind of laughing while I was doing it. It was weird, but it was kind of fun. It felt like I was in a movie, you know, like that scene. Yeah.
If we didn't know it before, we know it now. There's a lot of words I can think of for somebody like this, but why don't we just stick to the professional one? Psychopath.
Yeah, and I put all the bits in different steel drums.
But why would a seemingly well-adjusted, well-loved, well-raised young man commit such a heinous crime?
There's always gotta be a motive, even with self-absorbed psychopaths. This guy's been forthcoming so far, but that doesn't mean he's gonna give it all to the cops on a silver platter. And it doesn't mean it's gonna make sense.
And I was having a pretty difficult time. Lost in the woods, you might say, yeah? And well, I have a bit of trouble with what people call truth, because really, who gets to decide what's true? Detective? Do you?
Jack admits he's a pathological liar that has been in a downward spiral for 2 years.
Yeah, it'd
Like
be like
wedding
our engagement premiere,
That's
and
pretty cool.
so we could have our engagement photos outside.
He has allowed his passion for theater to take up all his time and energy, and has moved from one low-paying, dead-end job to another. At the time of the murder, he's 2 months behind in his rent and facing eviction. As debts slowly close in on him, he starts worrying about how he's going to pay for his upcoming wedding and honeymoon. He starts borrowing money from friends, and when that avenue runs out, his money situation becomes even more desperate.
Yeah.
But-
Should we can talk on the way.
Sure.
Go with him,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
You see this a lot in my business. Desperation leads to stupidity. Once a criminal feels like the walls are closing in, they're probably not gonna make good decisions from there on out. It kind of takes the desperate times call for desperate measures idea just a little too far, you know?
But Jack knows someone who has a lot of money, if only he can get his hands on it.
Yeah, no, this is it's a smart TV. Look, I'm on the internet right now. How cool is that? Yeah, so I could basically.
Rob Simons had received $80,000 as a settlement after a work injury as a first responder.
TV, you know?
When Jack finds this out, he devises a way to make that money his own.
$80,000 might seem like a small amount of money to kill for, but to Jack, this was enough to solve all of his money problems, avoid eviction, pay for his wedding, and pay for his honeymoon. From his skewed point of view, it was worth it.
I just needed money. I just needed the money.
Jack couldn't admit to his fiancée that he had no job, no money, and couldn't afford to marry her. Most people at this point would either get a job or postpone the wedding. Not Jack, though. He decides his best solution is to kill his neighbor. And then, this is where it gets even more crazy, he decides to also kill Lisa to cover his tracks.
On the day Jack was supposed to marry his fiancée Nicole, he is charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder. At trial, he pleads not guilty, despite having previously confessed. But the jury are not convinced by his theatrics and find him guilty of murder. Jack is sentenced to life without parole, with no more roles to play except for that of a convicted felon.
East and Juliet is the sun. Arise, fair sun, and kill the envious moon.
Evil has many different faces. This one had 2. The popular and fun-loving actor and the selfish, cold-blooded killer. Jack cast himself in the role of double murderer and probably thought he could get away with it. But his penchant for performing was too great, and he acted himself into a corner his skills couldn't get him out of. This was a crime so bizarre that he committed 2 savage murders so he could have a beach honeymoon. He wrote himself a twisted tale to star in and left 2 innocent victims in the wings. Even Shakespeare in all his glory couldn't have written this one. Stephen King, on the other hand, well, you get the picture.